đời trong đi nữ chỉ chuẩn trên cái nó thì và ta nó từ hai tàu giờ có tụ thiết cậu nữa trên nữ mà liên từ ta nên sẽ đời trong muốn chỉ trong tí giả đó nè trên nữ mà liên tranh đâu
còn nó chỉ một chân nữa bây chỉ sao cả trong nó ta chỉ mà bây có chỉ.
This is true, and although we don't want it to be like this, but we were told that if we don't comply with the instructions by the team leaders, we would be split from the rest of the group and be forced to fend for ourselves. And because of these instructions, we were put in a very difficult decision and ended up making the decisions that we did.
He said they didn't really have a choice because if the team said if you don't give opium to your child, then you are on your own. So the group that are not willing to give opium to their child went on their own. The group that are able to or are willing to give opium to their child went with the team. So it was a really hard choice, and they decided to do that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's so hard. Yeah. Yeah, and you think, if I know 10 people, how many more in Wausau? Another 10? Maybe another 20? How many in just Wausau had babies die? For sure more than 10.
Nếu hạt thì nếu tôi báo cáo tụ tiến này qua mình nhỏ tôi thì nó cho lên đó thì nếu sao báo thì giống mà đi chăn gì thì bây giờ hiện chân cho tiến này cho trong hình về tôi hóa sao nó có lo cái thế nhưng mà mong trong cơ giờ thì nếu báo cáo tụ tiến này thì chơi hiện chân cho trong hình mà ý giả đi ra đó thì giả đi coi ra thế nào
có chân gì biết chấm mong mà biết chỉ trong mong cho một bia trong lần từ khó.
In all honesty, the Hmong community don't want to share. In all honesty, it's not. In all honesty, the Hmong community does not want to share their sad stories to other individuals or other people. We are only able to keep the stories to ourselves and talk to those that have some sort of similarities with us. Though I am not sure about those individuals. I'm not sure about their stories. I am not sure about the stories of those who crossed to Thailand through the main roads. I'm not sure of their stories, but I do know that those that have crossed through the jungles to come to Thailand, that there's many lives that have been lost. We feel that it's not right for us to share our personal stories to the American leaders because we're afraid of retaliation. But now in these days, we realize that these stories is a part of our history. It is a memory. And we saw that when our leaders came to America here and their interactions with the American government, we've heard many of the stories of individuals who have arrived who have come to the United States and who have lost their parents, their brothers, their family members, and have to come and start a life in America here by themselves. Please share this story with
another 10, maybe another 20.
they are not trolling the they sa bao hay they are yung mo nó có lo cái nhưng mà mong trong cơ ya thì được báo cậu từ tiến đến trên chơi
Rewinding back to 39:20.
có chân về phía chấm mông mà phía chỉ trong mông cho một bia trong lần từ khó
Honestly, it is hard for the Hmong community to share their story to anyone else.
dần gì nó chỉ phía trong mông nhón đại ở phía cho năng ở phía kia tua nữa cho
The stories that we share, the sad stories that we share, we can only share with individuals that have some sort of similarities as us.
tổ kỳ đo chỉ luôn từ
I am not sure about those individuals that traveled or made the decision to leave Laos and come to Thailand through the main roads, but I do know
cho kia hai dòng hàng chỗ đi phía cho tôi là để mong tu ở kia chỉ lấy tua và trở đi phía tua sẽ chỉ trong sẽ trong tu nữa cho mình
I do know that those that made the decision to cross, to come to Thailand through the jungles, there has been many lives that has been lost.
chỉ cho nó giờ yêu cầu ở phía trong mong nhau nó vậy nhưng từ lấy chỉ trong cho tôi thả rồi cho nó chưa ăn
There's many Hmong individuals in the area here who also shares the same story, but we feel it's not right for us to share our story, or it's not all right for us to share our stories to the American leaders,
bảo tàu
to let them know.
cũng trên chạy thì cho họ tới mình đi ra đó xin
We were afraid that if we did, there would be some sort of retaliation, but today,
chỉ biết một bảo tàu thì yêu cầu nó yêu cầu tàu và chơi thì
that these stories that we have gone through, the stories, the memories that we have gone through, is a part of our history.
và biết tụi nó thì America rồi tôi si tôi cho sẽ nhớ được biết cho là chùa biết thì chỉ sẽ tôi là
To be part of our story, be part of our history, because the American leaders and our leaders, our Hmong leaders, made the decision to participate in the war, and that because of that decision, we ended up having to make the decision to come to the United States.
biết chuyện năng là giờ thì tôi này chỉ họ sẽ ta là nhưng tôi là
Those individuals who are orphans because their parents have died from the war made the decision to come.
tôi mình tôi nhiều sẽ ta là nhưng tôi là tôi
Those who lost all their kids as a result of the war made the decision to come.
tôi đó thì cái này tôi là này nhưng tôi là
Those whose husband who passed along the way made the decision to come.
tôi này tôi thì cái chỉ tôi là nhưng tôi là nữa
There are also those who lost their wives on the way, who still made the decision to come to America.
thật nè mỗi bia mình chỉ trong lịch sử còn là cái những tôi phải cần rồi
There are so many stories to share, and I wanted to share these stories with you.
He said the reason why not a lot of people know about their stories, the ones that came here and by airplane, the first batch that came, they came without any trouble because they came by airplane. The ones that came through the jungles went through a lot, and the reason why they don't tell it out, what they don't share with anyone, and they keep it to themselves was because they don't want to cause any trouble anymore because they're scared that if they say something, then they're gonna get consequences.
Yes.
Yeah, so they didn't want any consequences, so they keep it to themselves. And the reason why now they're able to tell their story and speak up more about it is because nowadays it's more comfortable telling than back then they were too scared of any consequences.
Yeah.
Yep, and he also said there's so many people that have lost so many loved ones, and the ones that lost their fathers, they still continue going even when they lost their wife, their brother, their mom, or husband or kids. They just keep going. They had no choice but to keep going.
Yeah. And you think Wausau, just one town.
Mm-hmm.
One town, so many sad stories, but every town with Hmong. We're just one town. Eau Claire, La Crosse, Sheboygan, Milwaukee. St. Paul. Every city with Hmong has the same sad stories. Thousands of sad stories.
nhà nơi hai tia học bé son mong nó sư học qua sọ nó sư mong trong cái gì chỉ cho clear là class important thì sample thế nó mong trong cái để tan cho bé hải nên mong mà cho tan nên tôi share chắp lại nó.
You know, the other thing that is not talked about, there's another thing I know happened many times. People don't talk about it.
Nè từ nữ bảo ý sao đan này và từ một tiếng này cho mù thầu họ đan này ý giả nó để chỉ mà chúng mình thả cho lên nữ bảo ý sao đan này được thế nào nè.
Yeah. Rape.
Bây giờ đi bao nhiêu mà cho đánh nó nè, cho nó mà chúng mình thả cho lên nó.
Dạ, có mà ô chỉ là sao mua thế là chỉ sao mua cái này cho là thả. Chỉ nhưng mà mỗi chuyện nhóm đầu tiên mà nhưng trâu tới mình lo cơ cháu.
This is a very uncomfortable situation because the daughters who have experienced rape are often embarrassed and they feels dishonored. But there's been several incidents in Laos.
Con này mình nhỏ hỗ trợ là tết cho nhau hai giống chỉ lấy những bộ phim nó là mua họ bé tôi trâu thay tết kia là đây kia tôi trâu thay tết là những bé những trâu cho tết mà nó tí giảm cô.
Where the oppressors would approach the village and have strict control over the village and use their authority to have their way with in anyone they want, whether it's a wife or a daughter. We've also seen this in the jungles as well too. And even when we arrived in Thailand, we saw that this was still happening as well. We've seen that if we weren't armed ourselves, if we didn't have any guns or anything to protect ourselves with, we would be taken advantage of, and the oppressors would come and have their ways with our wives, our daughters, and our mothers.
Yeah.
And there would be nothing that we could do to protect them.
He said the reason why they don't express that or tell that out is they don't want, because they're either embarrassed or they want to hide that.
Yes.
As if it never happened. Yes. And he said a lot of people went through that, but they don't tell it because they don't want people to know. So so they hide it. And he said when crossing, even in the village, so many wife and children, especially women and girls, were raped, but they can't do anything about it. And even crossing the river, once you get to the Thailand side, the soldiers that comes, if you don't have guns, then they will take your children and your wife, and you cannot do anything about it. But because he have a gun with him at that time, the Thai people, they were scared because he does have a gun with him.
When he got to Thailand, what camp did they take him to?
Là cho con một cho lúc camp tên này lúc.
Xong thì cháu bé và bé làm đó là chỉ là thì họ camp này chỉ mua và không cần cả họ lại. Chỉ là một.
When we arrived in 1983, we were informed by the Thai government or the organizers that Ban Vinai did not have, it would not allow or accept any more individuals. So they ended up sending us to Senkang.
Cho Senkang nó.
Bé nhảy lò xong chụp bé chỉ bé lò bé giờ sụt thì thế sụt lên, mỗi chỗ là tí là nhau họ lúc sụt mà phát nữa, chỉ bé giờ sụt thì bé lò bóng đồ xuống Senkang là nhau họ.
So our group was sent to go so our group was sent to the refugee camp Senkang.
He said in '83 they came and they were gonna go to Camp Vietnam, but at that Vietnam, it was full. The first batch that came.
To correct, correct here, it was actually Camp Vinai, not Ban Vinai. It's Camp Vinai.
Oh,
chỉ
okay.
nhớ thì tết chỉ thấy ra xuống bên này nó chỉ là bù rồi nè ý là đi lấy ta căn đúng rồi nó chỉ bù cho nên lọt tàu khang gan đã rồi nè
Okay.
The government wasn't willing to accept any more individuals into Camp Vinai, so they ended up sending us to Camp Senkan.
He said he was the second batch that came, the second batch of Hmong that came. The first batch was in Camp Vietnam, but it was in Thailand. Yep, and it was called Camp Vietnam at that time. That one was full, so the second batch of Hmong that came, they went to Lu có một cái hồ lý
lúc xuống xiên khăm nhớ cho thái tế theo lúc bên này là nhớ thái tế lúc xuống xiên khăm là nhớ thái tế đó là chỉ lúc Camp bên này đó chỉ là cờ là nó chỉ bù nâng cao rồi
Camp Vinai is filled, so they weren't accepting any individuals. So they sent us to Camp Susukan.
Okay, they là mua cho
là chúng ta bên nhảy một chỗ thông một chỗ bị xuống xiên khăm cổ tế là nhớ bị
Susankan was in the northern portion of Thailand.
giàu nhớ bị u rồi
Oh, okay. They went to Sankam is what the camp is called. That's also in Thailand. Yep, the second batch of Hmong that came went to that one because the first Camp Vietnam was
bên này
no,
bên này nó chưa bên này nó Camp
sorry,
bên này
not Vietnam. Well, Vietnam is what it's called.
maybe you know
Vietnam.
bên này yeah
Oh, sure.
Camp bên này
Yeah, Ban Vinai.
yeah ba bên này
But you didn't go to Ban Vinai.
no
Oh.
It was full when they came.
Full. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I was going to ask. My friend was at Ban Vinai.
oh
And I thought maybe in 1983,
So it is
maybe
Ban
you met
Vinai.
my friend. They call him Tan Pop.
Nên they có một bó thầm pháp nọ, nên nhớ cho bên này nọ.
ở bên này cũng chỉ lần nào cũng chỉ bao
He said he didn't go to Vietnam, so he doesn't
He
know.
was a white man.
Oh,
oh
And
okay.
anybody go to Ban Vinai remember Tan Pop because all the children like him. Used to give the children candy, and very friendly man. And he worked with the Hmong in Ban Vinai for many years. Finally, he got old and died.
nên hai tiền nữ mới từ từ point như mấy cả mua cho họ mua cho bên này thì nữ tiền mua phải đâu mong hiểu là tôi bên này tôi nó sẽ lấy chuyện cho cả từ mấy cả đó thì xem mà nữ mua thì nữ tự xỉa nó
So how long was he in Thailand before he came to America?
thì có nhớ thay tên để bỏ ra
cũng như tập bé xong
cái sống
I was in Thailand for 3 years.
3 years.
And then when he came to America, what city did he go to first?
Lúc sau nên tôi cho thì nói hiểu lúc sau là chị
cũng tôi bé chợt thấy tôi chỉ xong gì cho bé gì cho trâu của tôi của bông yêu thà gì cho trâu lú
I stayed in Thailand for 3 years, and I ended up coming to the United States in 1986, and I arrived in Utah.
mình tôi vẫn thích có ý chỉ của bông yêu thà
Okay. He came in '86. He came to America. 12/11. '86.
I arrived in Utah on December 11th of 1986.
Landed in Utah.
Utah.
Yep, in Utah.
vì bé mới tôi phô thế và ít tôi sponsor America tao bé tôi đúng đã
We arrived in Utah because we had an aunt, and also our sponsor lived in Utah, so that's why we arrived in Utah of 1986.
We have a sponsor that was American, and one aunt that in Utah. So that's why they came to Utah because the sponsor was there.
Yeah. And then how long did they stay in Utah before it came to Wisconsin?
Thì có nên nhớ Utah đâu anh đây một trăm.
nhớ tôi ăn thì chỉ cho cái tiêu một số nó tôi tao bé
We were in Utah for about 2 weeks, and then our relatives in Wausau ended up bringing us to Wausau.
2 weeks.
Just 2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks, and then he has
You don't like Utah?
he has family in Wausau here.
Oh,
That's
good.
why the family went and picked them up.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So, I shouldn't joke. When he dies, and his spirit makes the journey back, you gotta go from Wausau
yeah right
to Utah, to Thailand, to Laos, to Longcheng, to your
Yeah, right.
your spirit has long journey.
Can you ask him how he's so aware and knowledgeable of the Hmong culture?
He's wondering how did you know about all these things?
Well, I've been working with Hmong people for many years.
Mình trong mong là qua được tao ở bên sông nên
Yeah,
they
bên
know.
mong chị cho một lần đó giờ chị dù ta dù là chị bên culture chị như chủ tàu ít lúc rõ trong cuộc đã làm sao ít lúc rõ yêu yêu.
According to the Hmong culture, whenever we passed away, we would have to go back to all the areas, all the cities, all the villages, all the areas that we lived in, all the way until we arrived in the village where we were given birth, or where we were born.
Thì mua và có một tane hay yêu mua lúc tròn nữa, đã có mua lúc tròn là cho chú tròn mua mà mình một thời tiết rồi nó.
Where we would then have to go and find the placenta in order for us to go back and reincarnate.
Mua lúc cho nữa ý là đi của chị bảo trong thế, ý là để 我就個專門得下晝啲層樓先落，係好冇得我俾攞咗。
bên mà bên phụ mà nó mua nó là này có tôi nhớ lúc rồi thì chỉ có tôi xí rồi để rồi tờ tôi nhớ trong thắt chặt đó nó là chỉ bên khâu chữ bên mong chỉ bên chủ tờ này đã có một chỗ lúc rồi đó một thể nông đi bên lợi chậm đó nó tầm thể nông đi tầm mà một chỗ thái tế bên tôi nhớ thái tế lợi nó là chỉ bên tầm một chỗ thái tế một số thái tế chỉ mà.
So in the Hmong community, in our Hmong religion, we believe that because of the fact that in every area that we lived in, we are taking on debt by utilizing resources that are available there. For example, food. We're taking away items from the areas or the land that's there. So we have to repay these debts. So we have to go back to each of the areas that we lived in, every town, any village that we lived in, and repay those debt back before we're able to go and reincarnate. We would have to go back to we would have to go back to our old villages, for our own country here, and burn money or pay them back for the resources that we consumed or utilized during our lifetime.
Okay.
And then after we pay back all our debts, we must go back and find a placenta and use it and take it with us in order for us to go back and reincarnate.
Yeah, I asked him because I don't know too much about that, and I asked him how come he just doesn't go straight to Laos to grab the clothing, and he said the reason that he have to go to different cities that he's been to, or the states that he's been to, the place that he's lived in, was to pay respect to that place that he lived in. So that's why he had to travel to all those areas, is to pay respect, and then the final destination will be his birthplace.
Not his final destination.
No, 只有好個牛表，好個冇佢碌錯咗。Okay.
According to the Hmong customs, there would be an individual who would guide us through our journey back to where we were born and eventually where we would eventually reincarnate.
After that, then someone will lead you to lead you to your family.
The path of all the Hmong. He has to go back to China and to wherever the Hmong have lived.
Thì như một cho dân li một cho sổ tế nào mà yêu.
Bây giờ cho lâu giờ yêu số tế chỉ như yêu tông tâm cũng chắc không cho lúc tế chờ đi học.
Ôi thì yun cho yun để yêu chỉ mu lên lời thế đó.
Tế lâu chỉ bé hay giờ lỡ lòng tàu lúc tế chờ là mà có chẳng hay là một số cha bé giờ chẳng lùa tàu cá nó.
So it's only the elders that actually would have to travel all the way back to China. For those that are younger, because we lived in less countries or less land or areas, we have less to we have less to we have a less not as far of a distance to travel in order to reincarnate.
Chỉ chủ trong công cho nên lúc rò nên lúc tết chiều yêu nên chỉ nên một món nên lúc tròn nên tạm mà nên mà một tàu phết thiết.
Yeah.
They have to arrive back in the town or the village of that country that they were born in to get their placenta, or in this case we call it a shirt, before we can go and reincarnate.
Elders that came from China, they have to go through that path.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bé cho lùa giờ bé là dùng là tết giờ bé cho và
Lots of
một trong là tết xứ giờ bé bài thực bé muốn bé lúc cho chủ trong bộ giờ bé bài thực thiết là giờ cho lùa giờ dùng số tết lỏ nó chỉ những tơ Trung Quốc đã không cho số tết nữa nè.
For those that only lived that were born in Thailand or Laos, they would only have to go from America to Thailand and Laos before they can reincarnate back. But for those elders who were born in China, they have to make their journey from the United States to Thailand to Laos and ultimately to China in order for them to reincarnate.
Okay, he said the younger ones that are born in Laos, once they get their clothing, that they are able to reincarnate afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, but the ones that are born all the way from China, they have to go all the way to China.
Yeah. You've been to many Hmong funeral.
Not so much.
Not so
I
much?
will be attending one this weekend.
Look, do you think it would be traditional funeral?
For who? For
Oh, she doesn't know.
sorry.
Tell her about the shoes for the dead.
Oh. Sẽ câu rồi cũng chỉ bảo rồi là cũng chuẩn bị nhà giao để bác sĩ trong.
Chỉ có sẽ trâu biết giờ tiền này nó biết mua là biết trâu ít xài đi nó là lấy những chủ mất sẽ không nông để cho là trâu sản đủ nó trâu khó biết khâu trở lại biết như mua hạt tiền trở lại nó giờ có một số số u chỉ lúc mua tàu can chúa được can chi tiền nó này.
You're referring to the shoes of the dead. Even if they're wearing their own shoes, there needs to be one that covers it, because when in the Hmong culture, we believe that when they go back to the heavens, the journey back requires a lot of traveling through several terrains.
Dùng một chiếc tàu nè, chỉ cho tôi dùng một loại chúng ta sẽ không được trâu chỉ phải chỉ lại nó nè.
We believe that if we don't have that shoe to cover the shoe of the dead to cover our shoes, then we're not able to go back and reincarnate.
Chỉ mua tiền đó có dùng một chu nè. Chỉ dùng một chỉ lại chỉ lấy chủ có dùng một sẽ không đó là chỉ lại chỉ bây chủ mua bây sẽ không nông với sẽ không cho là trâu sản đầu tiên.
Hay mua khoản đấy chả.
Ai mua trâu số chỉ to là ta sử dụng mua chỉ mua tiền đó chỉ có một tàu dù mà tiền chạy là do tiền tới nhà chỉ có chỉ một sẽ không được trâu chỉ có một tàu mà sau kế mua tiền đó chỉ có chỉ một bằng sử tàu.
Due to the terrains and the long journey, you need to have the shoes of the dead in order for you to be able to travel back to your ancestors. And in order for us to go and reincarnate, according to the Hmong customs and culture, we need to have those shoes in order for us to go back to our ancestors.
You know the shoes. You know what the shoes are called, right?
Yeah.
He explained that to have that, so that way you are able to have courage, and without the shoes, and if you just wear regular shoes, then you're not able to pass through. Yeah, because there's so many things also, in the afterlife that you have to go through and to pass through, and with regular shoes, you're not able to do that, and that's why we have special shoes.
I know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I want him to know. I know he's very proud of Yi Ling.
Mất thà khó lên đấy chị của hai đôi có hai đôi này chị cũng dùng xe vì tàu can đó trâu tôi trong tế nó chị họ tôi xong gì trâu sẽ chị những bí ô hoặc là gì trâu chị tôi cần đó cho gì chua cái đó xong sẽ chị nhưng cần tao chỉ ta để cho ta xem mà những ô là trong này nó nọ chị
After we arrived in the United States in 86, we went to school until 89, but even then we were already working since 86. We weren't able to finish our education, but we were working since we arrived in the United States. I am proud to say that since then I have 4 sons and 2 daughters. My second son was Xiong, and I had an older daughter whose name is my name, and after Yiling was born, there was 3 other younger brothers and one younger sister. We are happy that those that are grown and graduated are now going, and I am happy to know that those that have graduated from high school has gone to college, and I'm proud. I'm just happy that the only one left is my youngest daughter, who is graduating this upcoming year here, and she has expressed to me that she will be attending UW Milwaukee. So I'm just happy to hear that all my children has graduated high school.
Yeah, he said he's very proud. Since coming here in '86, him and his wife went to school for 2 years, but they didn't get too far. And he's very proud that the kids are now grown and are off to college, except for the youngest one. She's still in high school. And after high school, she's planning on going to Milwaukee. So all his kids are on to college, and he's very proud of that.
Yeah. He also should be proud that he's been a good teacher. I know when I talk to Yiling, he knows so much about the Hmong. Many people, he's a young man, he's only 24, 25 years old. Many people his age don't know. They have not had a good teacher. But I know he must be a good teacher because Yiling knows so much.
Cha có有khoa hình cho ya li yi lên nữ nó khó mà trong lên ngọc lo nó chỉ song song sơ nữ tư bảo à cho bé li mong tê li cái trái tê nó theo bảo trong mong ra đã nên tê nó yi lên chẳng lúa yi lên bảo song hình nó nữ hay thì có qua chỉ nó có khi yi lên trong cơ nó
cú yang hai trâu chú chấm mình nhổ thì sau tôi tập trong tê nó cái cần tàu giờ có chữ chân.
I have always taught my children that I have always told my children that because we're in this country here, education is very important. I have always told my children that they should always focus on education because education is the key to success and it will make things easier. Because one day when they have their own kids, it's going to be very difficult. So they must focus on education in order for them to be successful. In addition, they must always do what they can to abide by the laws and be a good and contributing community member. And although I, as his dad, am not very educated, I want them to be successful.
He also should be proud.
Cha có有khoa hình yi lên chẳng lúa yi lên bảo
cái cần tàu giờ có chữ chân. Chỉ giờ lên nó giờ tập trâu sen rọc cần tàu giờ có con theo hồ lử theo non theo học theo trong gì thọ qua mà mình tôi mình nhọ chỉ nhọ to chỉ có chấm nhọ trâu sen cần tàu theo trâu pan tàu là
In addition, I've taught them to be good and law-abiding citizens and contributing members of the community.
Tàu anh rong chỉ cho nói côวันนี้chỉ làอยู่chỉ bảoได้chỉ làอยู่ยังแค่อยู่จะมีอยู่ช่างวันนั้นเพจchỉ là cô lọtตาช่างคน
And although I'm not a very educated individual, I've always taught them to continue to be a good person, and I'm glad that they listened to my words of advice.
Cũng nôngอยู่luôn thế là cô ở cái cờ chỉ là cô phải nhận nhận mà cờ xe tận đây là giống một tàu đi cha chuyện cho trong đó cô chăm nhọ cũng như trong xe rồi lại thì ít kho cô chia xe rồi lại theo cô trong xe thì cô cũng mấy chăm nhọ chỉ tông đó nè lôi tụi nó phê nó.
I am very proud and happy that my kids did not go and get involved with bad influences and continues to be good people and contributing members of this community.
Okay, he said since coming here, he has taught his kids that education is
Had experiences, especially like the baby that died. Did they go to shaman and get help from the shaman to help that baby's spirit be safe? And did the shaman help them understand and help them with the pain?
nơi dia thầu mình nhỏ xiên ở trên đấy bom mùn chế thuật chỉ nên ở ý là đi quan đến mình chỉ cho có tụi mình nhỏ mùn tàu và tóm đây thế nào là nên những chữ mùn chế chỉ nên đi thế nào.
Cho cái nhiều tiền là. Quất ta thì chỉ tập.
Yes, we did accomplish that.
Rồi tôi đồ trong tế nó chỉ cho mình nhỏ nó mà chỉ mua cho mình nhỏ nó lên nó chỉ nhúc.
When we arrived in the United States here, we weren't actually able to have any kids. So we approached a shaman to try and help us be able to have kids. But because of the fact that one of our child died under our son died under our care, we were not able to have any more kids. As a matter of fact, the shaman informed us of the same thing, and said that there is the goddess of mercy or her mercy of Kuan Yin.
Cái cho mình nhỏ là trong này là nấy chỉ nhỏ nấy mà to lên mà nấy chỉ mua mình nhỏ thì giờ nấy mua nhỏ còn mua mình nhỏ mà.
The goddess of mercy, Kuan Yin, would not allow us to have any more kids because of the fact that the child that they left to be their firstborn child they didn't take care of and ended up who died under our care. And the only way we can resolve this issue is by having a shaman conduct a ceremony, and we must kowtow and beg the goddess of mercy in order for us to have any kids. So we ended up doing a ceremony, a ritual to send our oldest son, our 6-month-year-old son, to be reincarnated. And then we conducted another ceremony to go and beg and apologize to the goddess Mercy or Kuan Yin. To beg her to give us additional children. And we began some fertility treatments and also consulted with other advisors and elders in the community for herbal medicines here to help with fertility treatments here. So now we have 6 children, and I am happy.
Okay, he said when they came to America, him and his wife, they didn't have. very blessed.
Didn't ask about. There's anything he brought with him today that he wanted to tell that I didn't ask about.
Nè thì sẽ có bố mẹ đã chưa có sạc hay nữa, nên chỉ tao nông cao đấy có bố mẹ đã chưa có sạc rồi, mỗi cho nên sai rồi nên chỉ tao nông cao nó.
Cái điều của chị mua là của chỗ tôi bia mình chỉ cho cái và là tết tôi được tết chân nó thiên đời cũng chỉ nên mình chỉ nó sẽ của mấy tổ phong yêu là do ít tổ cái tên nữa cho story mà mình sau tu sẽ cần gọi ta xin xã thì mình chuyển giống mà chờ một trong sáng là chỗ tết thế chị mình chỉ sao mà mình cho cái chỉ cho cái ở chỗ lúa chỉ nữa nè còn
I don't have any additional stories or anything else to tell. However, I do have a friend or a relative who has experienced, who has a very sad life and sad story of mistreatment, punishment, torture, and who wishes to tell the story, but is afraid of sharing the stories because of the fact that he's afraid of being of the consequences, since he still has many dealings or many interactions with members of those in Laos.
giờ là bố mà là cũng mua kho thì ở chạy mua chân năng phê một đó là chỉ chọn năng dùng là thiên này của tên đó là thà là nè cho nên cho các mù sang tôi thì u thế chế mình chỉ tao sắm món này ra story cho là bia nè ấy giờ nó từ giờ này chỉ sẽ chỉ mua là nó là mà cậu là họ tôi thay là cũng mà cậu tôi cái tiền để là thay ít cho mua đồ không mà này tiền thì tiền nó chết ta lại mình tiền nó tao ta nhớ là mất chết rồi chết thì tiền tu ta đi rồi.
My relative shared has stories of torture where the communist regime actually has cut his fingers off and actually made cuts in his face, but because of his encounters and interactions in Southeast Asia and in Laos, he is hesitant to share his stories. But one day when he is willing to share his stories, I want him to come and share his stories as well.
He said he doesn't have any more story or any. One day go biệt, đã nên vậy đi go tới chuyện tới chỉ xin bê nó.
Có cái họ chủ yếu là thì sắp bóng đó này trói luôn bê cho là tao chỉ mà mình cho thay đua xe có ra story nó trở đi cái này tên đua này ông ta xử lại mà, cái sau uốn luôn trên mua kia có nhau trong đó nó sẽ chỉ tao mà, anh biết ra story thì trâu cái chuyện gì đi chả nó chỉ nó tao cơ.
Yeah, one of his friend, the one that I was telling you about, if you don't record him or like anything like that, and you just use a fake name or use like a picture or something, not his picture, but just like an art, then he's willing to do it, but to record him, he's not willing to at the moment.
I should have explained when I started. This, I don't care about the picture. This is just to get the voice.
Okay.
And then I give it to my Hmong friend, and he listen and type up the story. So this is just a recording, as I don't need. I didn't even have to have a.
Cũng mà cũng chỉ có cha nó này cũng là giờ thay tới này cho mình chỉ sợ cũng nhau kia, cho họ cũng như bia cũng trở lại họ và cũng mua lòng xếp. Thì giờ tết tụng nó và trâu chỉ trò lên đó là nó chỉ mình chỉ sắp bỏ nên riêng một nhau họ khi tao ta xin nó thì nhớ là họ chỉ trò nên bộ cái cha.
I am alright with my face being shown in these footage because this is my story. But the stories of my friends or relatives who has been tortured by the communist regime, they are hesitant to share their stories because they don't want some sort of consequences to result from their sharing their stories.
Yeah. He said for him it's okay to have his face. Lúc xóa thế này thì tụi không như ý là tụi mong John is the one that's working on this project.
So it's hard for me because of all the names I didn't know the voice on the telephone, but I so you're the Sealy Home.
Nè thì chơi dùng mất cho John đi John tập để lấy của đầu nó muốn đầu quan tâm mình cả thì giờ đi nên cho có thả cái sao đánh định là chỉ có biết cái sao đánh định thì thổ nữa mà còn
giờ tiếc khó giờ có chỉ tao có bị chơi nó chỉ hôn nó